back to the channel. My name is Chris and I am a gorilla in the wrist. Today is part 2 of the Bliger DateJust homage video. Viewers may recall we started this video a long time ago and it's taken a while to get back to it. When I originally received this watch and unboxed it live on camera, there was a problem, and that problem was that the hands didn't move, the second hand didn't move, there was no sign of life. I put a full wind into it and nothing. And we thought it might be interesting to see what happens in that journey through AliExpress's returns process. So I wanted to give you a quick update and then we're going to do a full review of the watch. So let's get into it. So before we get into the detailed specs, we do what we always do, which is do a quick run around the watch. I have, since receiving the watch, put it on a leather strap, which I enjoyed more. The Jubilee strap it came on actually wasn't bad, so it had solid end links and was 20mm, but tapered down to just over 15mm. And came with one of these glide lock style, I can't get my fingernails in, glide lock style clasps, just without the easy adjust mechanism. It does come with a diver's extension on it, so I guess credit for that. However, it was never particularly comfortable to wear, and therefore I have taken it off and replaced it with the black leather one that you see before you now. So let's just very quickly get into this one. So this is a 39mm Bliger DateJust homage. It's a grey colour with a very nice sunburst effect on the dial. 39mm. It's actually relatively thin. So the claim spec was 13mm. When I measured it was 12. It has a very reasonable lug to lug as well, which came in at 46mm. So actually for a 39mm watch with 46mm lug to lug, it wears quite well. Actually, it wears quite nicely. And 3940 is I think a decent size. They do it at 36, but for me, I would rather stick with that. So it has the fluted bezel. It has batons all the way around apart from the three. There's a date window, which is very basic, but does the job. The back of the watch itself has no discernible markings on it at all, and a little disappointing that there is no branding on the crown at all, although the branding on the dial of the watch is just Bliger and automatic. I think you kind of have to give them credit for not overdoing it. I think it's very subtle, and clearly you can get this without branding at all. But actually, I don't think the Bliger brand is particularly terrible. So for me, I was quite happy to have that. So let's get into the specs of the watch itself. So we're going to do a quick run through the basic specifications for this watch. Dial width is 38mm, the lug to lug is a compact 45mm, the lug width is 20mm, and the thickness differs from the advertised at 12mm. The watch has a Minju 2813 movement, which we're going to talk about later. It's a sapphire crystal, weighs in at 112 grams, and has 3 atmospheres of water resistance. I have to say I'm a bit dubious about that. I think it's probably more than the advertised, but since I've stuck it on a leather strap, I'm probably not going to test that theory. So before we get into the specifications for the watch itself, let's just talk about what happened next. So in the first part of the video, we opened the watch. It was dead on arrival. Didn't matter what I did, couldn't get it going. The watch was purchased from the Watch Strap Code store on AliExpress. So I got in touch with them. They asked for a bit more evidence, and it's quite hard sometimes with the app to get a good enough video to show what was going on. So I did a little YouTube video and sent them a link to that. Um, they then accepted that there was a problem with the movement, which is normally the issue when it isn't working. However, their first option, as I'll pop up on the left, was to send me a replacement movement. I pointed out that I'm not a qualified watchmaker and therefore not in the position to be whipping the movement out and putting a new one in. Their second gambit was to say, in that case, if we send you a movement, could you go and take it into a local watchmaker and get him to put it in for you? Again, I explained that I'd got a quote for that and it was going to cost £95 to do, and I was happy to do that if they were going to pay for it, which they weren't. And at this point, they then basically told me to return the watch and they would get a fresh one out to me. And I think I have to give them a bit of credit. Despite the initial suggestion of sending me a replacement movement, actually I sent the watch back. They sent the replacement out before they had received my watch back, and this is that replacement watch. Thank you, Watch Code Strap store. I think you acted very honourably in the end. So thank you for that. The watch arrived about a week and a half later and was in full working order. So let's talk about my gripes about this watch. So I'll start off with the fact that the finishing on it, I mean, it's okay. It is very simple. It's basically polished. Polished across the lugs, polished across the sides. The case back itself is brushed, but mostly shiny. And there's not a lot of sophistication to it. Now, I know this isn't an expensive watch, but would it kill them to have put some sort of chamfered edge on it? Some sort of brushing. It is very shiny, so that was a bit disappointing. The other thing that's really disappointing is that this is a Mingzhu 8213 movement. Now, I know very little about that other than people are suggesting that it's a clone of a Netta or of a Solita. It isn't. What I'm told is that it's a clone of the Miyota 8215. I can't imagine why anybody would want to clone that, to be absolutely honest. But anyway, I'm told they are reliable, although you'll hear different things from different people. My problem with it is actually a practical one, which is actually when I pull it out to do, when you do the quick date adjustment, it really does chonk through. I suspect you can't hear that, but that's not a good mechanical sound. Now, I know it's clicking through and I know the way those mechanisms work, but for me, don't like it. I'm sorry, just don't like that at all. It doesn't feel right. I've changed dates on hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of watches, so I know what a good movement feels and sounds like. It's my NH35s, even the Miyota 8215s. You don't get that very strange resistance and then clonk as the date switches over. So that to me is very disappointing. But other than that, actually, it's not a terrible watch. As I say, the finishing could do with a bit of finesse, and that issue with the movement as well. I guess the other thing to say is I don't know anything about how long these movements are likely to last, and therefore this is always going to be a bit of a punt. And maybe it would have made more sense to get the NH35 version or the PTS 5000 version, but I'm a cheapskate, so what can I say? But that's it, so not a huge amount of gripes. So then what do we like about this watch? Well, I really like the dial. It kind of goes from a sort of dark colour through to the sunburst. The sunburst works really well, and actually it's very pleasant. It's a very nice watch to look at. Some people think that the fluting is a bit aggressive in how it's done, but actually I think it works very well with the dial itself. Um, so yeah, for me, I think that's an absolute great of it. Um, since I have had this version of the watch, so this is my second of these, I've actually had no problems with it at all. So mechanically, it seems to be sound. So I guess we've got to wait and see with that a little bit. I'm not really sure. And okay, so let's have a go at summing this one up. So after a troubled start, as you will have seen from part one, we actually ended up in a fairly good place, I think. I'm a reasonable fan of the brand, and I know they are very cheap, but the Explorer one that I had from them is a great watch. I mean, a really, really good. It's very simple, and I know it's copying exactly what Rolex does, um, but I like it. There is something about how they take these iconic designs and homage them in a way that is um, sympathetic but not a copy. So for me, as a brand, I know they get some stick around this, um, but the Explorer is a good example, and this DateJust homage is exactly the same. I think it's competent without being outstanding. The finish is okay without being exceptional. It's done very plainly, but actually, it's not done badly. It may be lacking a little bit of sophistication. Um, but for 60 quid, how much sophistication were you really expecting? And I do have to say, well done to Watch Code Strap Store, who, despite their initial suggestions that I take the movement out and stick in the one that they replace, did actually replace it. And actually, dealing with them was very good, quite amusing, but very good. So I think a little bit of credit there. I was slightly worried that we was going to end up 60 quid out of pocket on this, and that wasn't the case. And in terms of the watch itself, it does have a beautiful sunburst effect on it. Whether you like that grey colour, I guess, is down to personal taste. I do. I think it works well with the strap. Fluted bezel. I think it just hangs together reasonably well. I'm not bothered about having the Bliger name on it. I know for some people that's an issue. Not for me. I kind of like them. I like the simplicity of them. So for me, for 60 quid, I think this is a solid 7 out of 10. I think if if the watch had a better movement in it, it would have cost a bit more, I guess. But that would have probably nudged it up towards an 8. But no, I think for me, not a bad offering. So I'm happy. This one will be staying in my collection and I will enjoy it. Um, which just leaves me to say thank you for seeing this through to the end. If you've enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. If you didn't enjoy it, please tell me why. I'm always up for a bit of positive criticism. Um, all that remains is to wish you a fantastic week. Hopefully see you again back for another video soon. Thanks everybody. Bye bye.